Alright, so I'm going to be tying a Marabou Tube fly. I'm going to just be doing a voiceover on it because that seems to make the most sense. Right now I'm just tying in a 1.5 inch dubbing brush with like an Arctic Fox. It's a chromatic, chromatic 1.5 inch brush. And I realized it was too short, so I had to grab some heckle pliers, but I want to get 4 wraps out of this, and everything's going to be really pinned down when I first wrap it in because I'm just kind of folding it back as I go. Once I get this nipped off or tied off, then I'm going to nip off the little bit of excess that I had left, and then I'll grab some wire cutters and cut the little bit of extra that I had out of that, just like so. Set that off to the side. Now I'm just doing some securing wraps and getting the end of the wire all down, and now I'm taking my bobbin and freeing up all the fibers and unpinning it all so it can be poofy and a good support prop for the Marabou and everything else that I'm putting in front of it. Like that. Honestly, I bet you could just fish a fly or fish this and catch something really easily just on that little bump that you have there. But being a fly tyer, I got to make it fancier. So this is a Marabou. This is a bright orange Marabou from Fish Hunter. Cutting out the tip. And I'll try to do 4 wraps of this. This is a winter fly, so winter flies I always like to have a little bit bushier than summer flies because the flows are lower and a more sparse fly just works better, in my opinion. The bushier winter flies are just more fun because you get to add more stuff and it just makes it more visually pleasing. But I highly doubt that the fish care how much you have in there. It'll swim nice, and then as it gets fished and banged on rocks and hopefully in a fish's face, it'll end up sparsing up a little bit if that's your thing too. But 4 wraps of Marabou, unpinning all the trap fibers that got snagged up and everything as it went along. Next thing I'm going to tie in is some flash. This is some red Semperfly flash that I found at Fin and Fire. It has some blues and golds and stuff in it too, and some purple. And just grab 3 fibers, tie it in on the top, and then tie it in on the side, and then I rotate the vise, and then I repeat that process. Tie it in on the top now, but it's technically the bottom. And then I'll tie it in on the side. Here in a second, my thread's going to break. Did I want to retie the whole fly just to cut that part out? Nope. I think I got caught on that little nip of wire. You can see the disappointment in my face. And I got to rethread my bobbin, and so this part will be a little boring, but mistakes happen when you're tying flies. Best thing to do is just not freak out. Get back in there, secure your thread, cut out the excess thread, and my flash got all messed up too, so I just pulled that out so I can retie that in. Here comes my flash for round 2. It cooperates a little bit better this time. Like so. You can see the frustration in my hand trying to hold the materials back because I'm still annoyed that it did that. And right there I just cut it off just a smidge longer than the Marabou fibers, just so it kind of dangles in its own world. And now I'm tying in some magenta Marabou. I'll do 4 wraps of this as well. Trying to tuck it back. Marabou can be unruly unless you get it wet, but I just didn't get it wet this time. I just let it be dry and natural because I just like the way it looks. When I'm tying it in, I can see how full it's getting, whereas if it's wet, you can't see the amount that you're putting on as easily because it's all pinned wet and it just lays down better, so you can overdress a fly really easily if it's wet. Now I'm just securing the stem. I'm going to cut that stem out. Next thing I'm going to tie in is some Lady Amherst. I plucked 2 fibers per section that I'm tying in. So each, it's going to be on 4 quadrants, just like the flash was. And so I use 2, and then as they get fished, they kind of break apart and kick a little bit different. But for initials, I just use 2 to tie in. So here's corner 1. So the flash I tied in at the top and the bottom and both sides, and then this I kick off between the flash. So each one is like quartering the flash as well. Rotate the vise so I can tie in the ones on the bottom. If they rotate when you're tying them in, like that one did, I'll take it and kind of move it around and adjust it where I want it. And if it still doesn't want to lay right, I'll take it out and retie it back in, and hopefully it'll lay better on the second one. And I'll just kind of keep fighting with it until I get it to lay so it's cupping down towards the fly instead of sticking up funny. Again, do the fish really care? Probably not, but I do. So I just like them to lay right. 2 wraps, check it. Look good. So now I'm going to cut off the excess that I didn't need. Like so. Next thing is just a finishing collar of silver pheasant in orange. With this, I like to do like 3.5 wraps. So I'll rip off the one side of the feather for about a full wrap. It's something you just kind of get the feel of as you do it more and more. And this just kind of cleans everything up. It hides the excess thread wraps that have built up from tying in the rest of the fly, and just kind of cleans the fly up, helps the fibers all lay back nice. And you can do them in different contrasting colors. I really like the black barring that you get from the silver pheasant versus like using schloppen. And tie that off. Once I get this tied off, I'll nip that stem out of there. And then I'll take my brush and brush it all out and free up those fibers and kind of make sure everything's free and able to wiggle around as much as it wants. Give it some brushes forward to kind of make sure everything's freed up on the underside too. And then once I'm done with the brushing, I'll take a little bit of super glue. I'll run it on my thread, and I'll do 3 to 5 wraps of this with some super glue on it. And that just kind of finishes it off and seals those thread wraps so everything is nice and secured, so I don't have to worry about it coming undone. It's easier than doing a whip finish on a tube, at least, unless you use a big whip finisher, which I do have, but I just use super glue. It's easy. Here's a little hydro disc that I had. This one is in copper. I just thought it looked nice with the contrast to everything else. Press it in there really good. Make sure that that glue has a good grip on it. And then I'll pop it off the vise, nip that extra tube off, take a little lighter, and finish that part of the fly, and then it's ready to fish. Sorry I had to do the nipping of it off on my desk instead of up where you guys could see, but it was literally just taking the razor blade and cutting it off, so there's about 1.5 millimeters, and then just melt it a little bit with the lighter. Stick it on the tube adapter so that I make sure that I didn't melt it closed, because that's really annoying when you get on the river. And there's your little Marabou Tube fly, all nice and done and pretty. Really like these flies, just how nice they swim in the water and how easy they are to tie with minimal materials. You can get out and really enjoy it.